gonna win too.
Oh my God, well, we're going to a conference, like I'm not leaving the hotel. We're going to the Bruins Blackhawks game tomorrow night.
It's nice to meet you.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen.
About a year ago.
This is the December 3rd special meeting
Hi, nice
of
to
the
meet you.
Stonington Planning and Zoning Commission. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to introduce our newest member, Dave Resendez, first meeting this evening. Dave, thank you so much for stepping forward for the community.
Thanks.
We welcome you, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to say and make a lot of good contributions here, so thank you for your service. Meeting is called to order at 7 o'clock. I'm Chuck Sheehan, I'm the chairman. There'll be no alternates appointed this evening. We have all the regular members here. What's the commission's pleasure on item 3, minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes for meeting number 1774 from November 19, 2024 as written and submitted.
Motion by Ryan to approve minutes number 1774. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Chairman abstains. Item 4, public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that wants to address the commission on any subject that's not on the agenda. Not on the agenda. Anyone wish to address the commission? Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, correspondence. Clifton?
None.
And no correspondence. Item 6, reports. Clifton?
Just general update on the plan of conservation and development. As I stated at the last meeting, we were in the process of finalizing the decision. We've made the decision, the selection committee has made a decision and are recommending award of the POCD to SLR International. They're one of the 4 firms that we...
Who is it? Sorry.
SLR.
SLR?
Yep. One of the 4 firms that we interviewed. That is going to be confirmed hopefully by the Board of Selectmen, who would make that decision at their meeting next Wednesday. And at that point, then we would go through the normal contracting process and moving forward. If anyone is interested in seeing the information that's been developed, including the questions that we asked the interview committees, the proposals that were submitted, and all of the scores that were tabulated, I have those in hard copy at the town office. So happy to get those.
Can you scan them and email them or somehow get them to us, other than coming in?
I can try. I do have digital copies of the proposals. I'd have to work to get everything else together.
Perfect, thank you.
Clinton,
Yep.
when are you thinking that the commission would meet the representatives and the work would start?
So depending on how long the contract process is, I would say sometime in the new year, maybe January, February. Just because we're unfortunately running into the holiday period, so it's a little difficult to get everyone together with people taking various holidays. So I'd say my expectation would be late January, early February for a meeting with the firm and the commission.
Okay. And will that take place in a regular meeting, or will that be a separate meeting?
I'd have to look and see how to schedule it. We can do it during a regular meeting, but traditionally these kickoff meetings are the opportunity for the firm to present basically what their hope and expectations are for the POCD, and separately for the commission to share their hopes and expectations. So I wouldn't necessarily want to bog down one of our regular meetings with that, and it might be best to do something separately.
Okay. And then just one last question. Can you remind me what the timeline is for completing any updates?
In the proposals, we saw expectations ranging from 16 months to 24 months. SLR's proposal came in around 18 or 24 months.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Clifton on item 6A1? Hearing none, reports from the commission. Clifton, anything? Commission have anything for the good of the order? Hearing none. Item C, zoning enforcement violations. I think there's just an attachment on the packet there. Nothing for administrative review. Moves us to item 7A, old business. And I understand we have an issue here, Clifton, on the first item A of Gary and Christie Caldwell, Ed Lally and Associates.
Correct, I received a message earlier today from Ed Lally requesting an extension on this application. That extension is to a date to be determined. I don't believe it's gonna be the next meeting in December, it'll probably be the January meeting.
So this has been on the agenda for, I feel, as if at least 5 meetings.
Yeah, it has.
Do you think we should just remove it and start over once they are ready to?
Maybe we should talk about the extenuating circumstances a little bit.
Yeah,
Is it out of place to say anything about what happened to Ed?
No, the applicant said that there's some health-related extenuating circumstances that have gotten in the way.
Okay.
I've been working with him in order to get all the items together to come before the commission. It's just not happening at this time, so we'll work to get that done as soon as possible.
Okay, I didn't know.
I had
if it
the
was-
same exact question.
Okay.
If it
And
withdraws
there are
from the-
extenuating circumstances
Okay,
that I think are,
thank you.
thank you, Lynn.
So what's the time, what are the official time dates? So it was received on September 17th.
Correct, it was supposed to be decided on by tonight. He's requesting an extension for that application. He has
For another 65 days.
up to 65 days,
So
correct?
that's fine, they can keep going until then, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item has been extended to December 17th. No action required, right, Clifton?
Correct.
And the next item is item 7B, under old business, site plan application of C Research Foundation, Inc. I see Mr. Sharenzi is here, representing the applicant. Evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Sergio Terenzi with Terenzi and Associates, offices at 99 Mechanic Street, Pawcatuck, Connecticut. The application before this evening, we were working with Keith Sorensen, who is here this evening with me, who's representing the Mystic Aquarium, and my associate, Rachel York. She's going to give just a brief presentation on the site plan. The application before you tonight is for it's basically a canopy type structure that is going over one of the pools that is used for the animals, some of the aquatic animals to stay in, and Keith can give you a little bit more description of what they're used for specifically. These pools are existing, they're there. This is actually a project that we worked on years ago when they were installed, and including all the utilities, drainage, and everything else associated with it. So Rachel will go into a little bit of what the conditions are there, the correspondence we've had with the town engineer as of late, and give you just a brief presentation on what it entails.
Thanks, sir.
I'm gonna set this up right now. Yep. Thank you, Chair. Just want to add real quick that the plans that we're presenting tonight were actually modified, and Rachel will get into it, based on some commentary. Just one comment from the town engineer, and she'll go over the details of those changes.
So as Sergio mentioned, I'm Rachel York. Our project is located at 55 Coogan Boulevard in Mystic. It's the existing Mystic Aquarium. Specifically, our site area is the 2 existing pools located here. So it's west of the existing parking lot and east of the the main entrance there. A blown up area is shown here. The pools are existing, as we stated. There's an existing canopy over this western pool, and the proposal is to add an additional canopy over the eastern pool. The canopy will have, the water will flow off the canopy into the existing drains, which then kind of goes into the existing drainage system. Everything that is existing is impervious, so the canopy will cover the impervious area. We're zoned tourist commercial. We don't anticipate any zoning issues there. We did receive comment from the town engineer asking about the drainage, which we think that we addressed adequately, and he seems to feel like we addressed adequately. There would be downspouts up here and down here on the proposed canopy, which will flow over land into the drains here and ultimately into the catch basin here. Keith, if you want to go into, I mean, not sure what the pool is really used for, but.
Not a problem. Good evening, everybody. I'm Keith Sorensen, Senior Vice President for Facilities and Capital Projects at Mystic Aquarium. Our project here is an important project. These circles obviously represent pools, as well as a small one here. They're 40-foot diameter pools, 10 feet deep, and they're about 6 feet in the ground. They have been in place for over 25 years. They've functioned very well for us for several purposes. They were originally designed to support stranded animals for a temporary period while we nurse them back to health and then release them back into the wild and so forth. They were also designed for holding our collection for different reasons, whether it be a medical situation or just the need to separate the animals, or if we're doing a renovation on a pool or something like that, we move the animals to these pools usually. And in fact, we just gonna move some sea lions back to a habitat we just renovated. So they're constantly, and I wouldn't say constantly in use, but they're used regularly. The need to cover the pools. Now that's two reasons there. Mainly it's protection from the sun for the animals. Second reason would be just it's important to have shelter when staff is working on the animals and to protect the animals somewhat from the elements, although we're in the wild, obviously they're subject to the elements and so forth. But it is we're regulated by USDA to provide some amount of shade for the animals, whether it be the sea lions, the whales, or the penguins. And we've had all our different animals in these pools at times. In the interim, we had to use, we call them, I think, they're side pole shades or umbrellas to dangle over the pool. Incidentally, back when this was designed, it was designed for a canopy that covered both the pools, or all three of them as it is here. Kind of like where the hash line is represented here. But that went the way of value engineering. And so we have a cover over what we call Pool 1, or a canopy, as well as an observation deck. That's been in place since 2009. And here we are, seeking approval for a canopy for pool number 2. Questions?
How large an animal will the tanks, I mean, can they put a whale in one of these tanks?
Yes, we've had our whales in there, our largest whale.
Okay, so from the largest to the smallest animals you have?
Yes,
Okay.
right. We had a harbor porpoise in one of these pools there. I'm looking at Mary Ellen because
And the size
I
of
happen
one,
to
Mary
know.
Ellen. 5 feet.
The only other question I have is, on another application, earlier application, where we were dealing with the other end of the site, where the public enters the site,
Yes.
in the ticketing area.
Yes.
We were concerned, and this is more WPCF type stuff than it is planning and zoning, but we were concerned there that some of the roof water might be getting into the sanitary sewer and being combined, and we want to treat all the wastewater that comes to the plant. We don't want to treat any clean water. So if we can be sure that where the roof leaders are discharging to is not a sanitary sewer, that would be most helpful. So if we could just, I don't think it'll hold up any approval. I'd be satisfied that we just make it a condition that the town engineer assure that the water is directed to a storm sewer not a sanitary sewer.
I think we can do that as part of or before construction, yes.
Okay.
I don't think that would be unreasonable.
Do you have more information on the rest of the site, a site survey that shows all the infrastructure?
We've, my company was involved years back, and we have a lot of records, and so does Keith. So we've been, with some of the projects that we've been working on, we've been doing kind of a deeper dive into the comprehensive utilities, drainage, and sewer for the property. And actually, it's a good segue, we're gonna be working on, hopefully, a master plan and updating the survey for the entire property. And we could take a look at that and.
That would be a good project for this, because we're almost certain that the stormwater from the roofs is getting into the sanitary sewer.
We can evaluate.
It's a large problem, so we don't make it any worse with this. I don't think it's a big deal here, though.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Sorry, are you concluded with your
I
presentation?
believe that concludes. Keith, did you have anything else? I just wanted to add what we provided with you this evening were also some photos. We didn't introduce those.
Yeah, they were very helpful, thank you.
One of them shows the canopy that is existing, and the other photo I just wanted to direct your attention is the area that does not have the canopy. It's basically if you were looking right to left.
Yeah, like here, that's this side, is the one that doesn't have.
That one doesn't have it. You can
The other
kind of
one
see
does.
the other one. You can see
Right
this. There's
Yeah.
and there'll be another, if you can envision a canopy over here. I'm not that great with rendering, so I didn't attempt to put one in to show what it would look like, but.
I just had one question out of curiosity now that you kind of pointed out. For the canopy that's going to be put, that you want over the other pool, is there going to be a lighting as part of that canopy? Like wired lighting and all? And is it going to match
Yes,
with,
we have lighting built into the project, yeah.
built into it? Okay, and obviously focuses the lights
Yes.
down, not out, so, okay.
So, how tall is the canopy?
The ridge, I think it's 26 feet.
Do you have that dimension? We can confirm it. I don't know off the top of my head. It's pretty tall, because I'm assuming you have to get equipment in and out to get the
Yeah,
animals.
there is a jib crane that's part of this complex, and it needs to swing under the roof. I believe it's right around 26 feet, but Rachel can check that.
And why the lights, if the purpose of the canopy is shade?
Primarily, yes.
So why the lights?
Oh,
She's
why the
asking why you need
lights? Oh, I'm
lights.
sorry, why the lights?
If you're trying to block the sun. Assuming at
Well,
night.
well,
Go ahead.
when we're caring for animals, that's sometimes around the clock. So there's people out there working, depending on what the condition of the animals might be.
Okay.
Yeah, so lighting is very important as far as getting in and out of the pools and being able to care properly for the animals.
Thank you.
How has the existing canopy worked? Has it been good? What have you learned? Changes for the new one?
It's worked great. It's a little bit bigger than the one we're proposing because it also covers a part of an observation deck that I mentioned earlier. These pools are not open to the public, to our visitors, generally speaking, except for maybe tours and that, if you want to consider that. But the observation deck is opened when we have a situation where the animals can be presented, from a distance. In other words, we don't always open the observation deck. Depends on what situation is.
Thank you.
Is the tank lit, the subaqueous levels, is there underwater lighting in the tank?
No, there's not.
There isn't, okay.
So you need that.
Okay, so I can understand the need for the lighting, but I think to complete the plans, there should be a lighting plan that's reviewed by the town engineer. So there's a lighting level that is achieved and it doesn't extend beyond the eaves of the building.
Right, so just to orientate me a little bit, this does not back up against 95, this extension. This backs up against kind of like the wetlands between Valenti's latest parking lot.
No.
And-
So, no, it does back up to 90.
It
There's
does.
I-95 here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, so if the
Oh,
photos.
it's right there on my
Yeah.
little teeny print.
Yeah, it's in the small print and it's even small, yeah.
Okay,
It's the
okay.
inset, but yes, I was gonna bring up that the lighting should not have a tremendous impact on neighbors because it's 95, which we know is pretty well lit, I'm assuming, over here. I mean, as you drive 95 this way, I believe Old Mystic Village, which is very well lit now
Yeah.
at night, and I believe the aquarium has
As well as
nice,
us, yeah.
yeah, so nice Christmas lighting up, or holiday lighting. But yeah, when you drive along here, I've done it many times, you can see, but there's a lot of trees and things in between.
Yeah, in the winter you can.
Yeah, winter you can
Yeah,
see it, but.
no, I just wanted to make, I thought it was 95, but then I honestly just didn't see it on the map, and I'm looking at the trapezoids coming down, and I'm thinking, is that the wetlands? But okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else have any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, Clifton?
No questions or comments, I'll just note that the lighting plan is already included, it's sheet E101. It's not in the handout that they provided, it's in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
But it says to replace or relocate existing floodlights to underneath the structure.
There are no other questions on the applicant. What's the commission's pleasure on matter for Sea Research Foundation, Inc.?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application, the site plan application as submitted with the following 3 stipulations. Number 1, the applicant shall address outstanding comments from the town engineer with regard to the stormwater runoff going to the existing drainage system. I think you wanted a notation in there that it goes to a particular type of sewer. Is that
A
right?
storm sewer,
Storm
correct,
sewer.
yes.
Okay, so make that stipulation number 1. Number 2, final plan shall be reviewed to the satisfaction of the town engineer, And number 3, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, the final plan shall be signed by the commission and recorded in the town's lands evidence records.
Motion to approve the application of Sea Research Foundation, Inc. with several conditions. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Chair abstains. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Terenzi.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, item C, is deferred until December 17th, 2024. Brings us to the next item, which is item 8, under old business, which is also deferred until December 17th. Same is true of the first 2 public hearing items. No further action is required on those, correct, Clifton? They're
Correct.
deferred until December 17th. And it brings us to item 9C. So for the public hearings, all regular members of the commission will be seated. The way the public hearings are run here is the applicant makes a presentation, and the commission has an opportunity to question the applicant. Staff makes comments, then the public is invited to speak either for or against, or just make a general statement on the application. Item 9C, Lynn, could you just read the listing on the agenda?
Yes, we'd like to open up application PZ2433RA, G Development, zoning text amendment application for an additional provision to the ZR 9.3.10 to include additional design exceptions applicable to the flood hazard overlay district.
Thank you, Lynn. Is there a motion to open a public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second? Second.
She second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Public hearing is in session. Counselor?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners,
Evening, sir.
Mr. Eiler and Assistant. Can I approach you, Mr. Eiler? We have some photographs.
Thank you.
Those photos were taken by Mr. Terenzia today, I believe. with the intent of just giving the commission some sense of what we're all talking about. Now, this is an application to insert language into your zoning regulations, a text change application. It's not, however, totally disinterested, as you know, on the part of the applicant. The building that is shown in these photographs exceeds a couple of the dimensional limits in your current regulations. One of them, the height limitation, let me go back. As I understand it, the issues arose while the town had a zoning regulation that provided flexibility for things like height on the top of a roof in all zones, and with really no language guiding the application of that regulation. My understanding is that regulation was repealed in November 2023, I think. It appears it was repealed inadvertently. And your consultant, CHI? FHI. Among its many recommendations for continued amendments to the regulations included a regulation that would have replaced the repealed regulation, but only in the flood zone. We were here in October 1st, I believe, with an application to amend the regulation. That application, as I recall, was identical or nearly identical to the language of the FHI proposal. The commission had some concerns, it seemed, with that application. One was a concern that they hadn't had really enough time to consider and digest what we were proposing and the consequences it might have. Another was that certain of the dimensional flexibility that our original proposal would have provided was perhaps a little too much, a little more than the commission was willing or thought would be prudent to allow. And the third, I believe, was that there were no standards in that original draft, although at least in our case, any application of it would have been by special permit, so the special permit criteria would have applied. In the proposal before you tonight, we have changed the dimensional relief, the amounts of the dimensional relief, I think in some cases in substantial ways. I think one of the numbers went from 75% or something to 10% or something like that. The height went from, I think we were asking for 6 last time. We were asking for 10, now it's down to 6. The repealed regulation would provide for 10 feet of relief on height. What we're talking about here is an elevator shaft that has extended beyond the roof line by 5.8 feet or something like that, I think. So the regulation, we think, obviously would be good for our client in the sense that it would give him an avenue to try to obtain relief by way of special modifications to the special permit that was issued for the property, for the project, I think back in 2020. One of the items on your agenda tonight that was continued to December 17 has to do with those special permits or some of them. Of course, the special permits can't be granted or can only be conditionally granted if this text change is approved. Ordinarily on a text change, I don't think a representative of an applicant would be in here talking about the particular circumstances of the client. But in this case, the client's situation, as I understand it, is quite dire. If unable to obtain approval for these changes, financing for the project will probably dry up. It's already been threatened for months. And I'm not here, I'm just stating a fact here when I say that this building appears to me to be about 90% finished. And there's no way, as I understand it, that the excessive height of the elevator, for example, can be removed. But except for perhaps taking out a third of the building and basically reconstructing it. So it's practically and perhaps even literally impossible to fix this at this point. So the fix would be to approve the text change as we've proposed it, and then our client will have to come in and try to convince you to grant the modifications. We did include, I hope I didn't say this already, but among the changes I made to the regulation we proposed the last time was to include a statement that any application under this regulation will be subject to the special permit criteria, and I identified the ones that would apply. So that, I think, should address the concern that was expressed the last time we were here about standardless regulations and no limitations on your discretion. So there will be limitations. First of all, 6 feet is the maximum that we're proposing. And the application for special permit's going to have to comply with the special permit criteria we identified. Now, last time we were here, your staff had, I don't think recommended the approval of the regulation that we proposed, but had seemed to be favorable to it. My reading of the staff report for this meeting is that staff remains in favor of, or at least certainly not against, the proposal we're making. I would suggest that what we're proposing is a common sense solution to problems that will probably arise with other projects. Certainly won't be limited to this one, I suspect. My understanding is that the regulation that was repealed in November 2023 hadn't caused the town any adverse consequences. And it's not expected that this one will either, particularly given the discretion you'll have to apply it on a case-by-case basis. So if you have questions about the photos, I think Mr. Terenzia would be in a better position than me to explain what you're looking at. But one reason we took the photos is to show that what we're asking for here is not extraordinary in terms of the relief. And in fact, probably, I suspect, fit in fairly well with the surrounding buildings and the neighborhood. I don't mean to stand here and threaten anyone, but if this regulation is not adopted and eventually the special permits are not modified, you're going to be looking at a building that will be in litigation for some period of time, I suspect. Won't be finished, and it'll certainly be in no one's interest to have that in this location. Oh, I meant to ask at the beginning whether we can take the record from the October 1, 2024 proceedings make it part of the record of this proceeding without actually having all the papers here.
Without objection, I have no objection. Anyone from the commission?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like to have read them, but.
Well, the same
Or,
paper. You read them in October, I believe. And
They were in the minutes?
I don't think they were in the minutes. Some of the stuff was in the minutes, I suspect. They were certainly in the package that was given to you in October by staff.
I can include the minutes and the original application, PZ 2418RA. That's what I think.
And in fact, I
think it's all part of the record anyway.
Well, I don't know if it's part of this record.
If you wanted to formally.
I did make
I have to say that this is a text amendment for the entire zone. This building is irrelevant.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
don't do spot zoning changes.
This isn't spot zoning.
So-
Spot zoning is changing a
Excuse
zoning
me,
boundary.
I'm speaking.
Let the
So
commissioner
this
finish,
is,
please.
this is,
Thank you.
I mean, that particular application and this particular building, I think, is just irrelevant to this discussion. So I really don't see that there's any need to put that in the record when we're discussing this.
Just for posterity's sake, the regulation amendment being referred to, it did come up in the public hearing that that was towards a specific end goal, but that project I purposefully kept separated from the other one for that exact reason. If the commission would like, I can put those minutes as part of the record for this project for that other regulation amendment that was denied. But that wouldn't include the special use permit application that is listed on the agenda, but technically separate.
But I understand what Lynn's saying, and I feel for you, and I'm not, we need to discuss this more, but these pictures, a text amendment is the entire zone. And I understand that you're concerned about this particular building, but I'm not concerned about that particular building. I'm concerned about how this affects everything that might come up in the future. So when you're talking about text amendments, I think it's better to be, it doesn't affect, it's not, be more general in terms of how this would affect all of the flood, the FHOD, not this, don't talk about this building at all, because it affects the entire town. Or it affects this.
I think I can talk about whatever I want to.
Well, I'm just saying.
This building.
Please.
Talking about
Yes.
this building.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Please, the commissioner has the floor, and when she's completed, you can respond.
you can talk about this building, but in terms of how I'm going to weigh my decision on this, I'm not going to look at that building at all. So of course you can talk about whatever you want, but in terms of the text amendment, it's a text amendment that affects like Commissioner Conway said, that affects this entire zone.
Absolutely.
And I do understand it affects this building, but it also affects every other building.
Absolutely, but I thought in the interest of openness and transparency, it would be useful to put this in context for you all. And looking at this building and the relief that we'd be asking for this building, I think also gives you a context as to how this regulation would apply to other buildings that might find themselves in the same circumstances. So we're not, I'm aware of, what a text change is, and that the key issues are how does it affect the entire zone. And with all respect, Ms. Conway, this isn't spot zoning. Spot zoning is when you change the boundaries of a zone in order to benefit one or two or three relatively small parcels. That's spot zoning. This is a text change that will apply to our property, our client's property, and others that find themselves in this situation in the future. Your consultant thinks that this is a good recommendation. In fact, the one that they proposed and endorsed grants greater relief than what we've asked for. And they proposed that, and I think it came out at the last, on October 1st, that you are in the process of revising your regulations again, or still, and that this proposal will be part of that, or would have been if it's not adopted now. So it's a matter of now or later, and I don't know that there's any reason to wait till later, unless someone can give me one. And there's a lot of reason for adopting it now. I mean, if you adopt it, and, well, I won't go there, but for what it's worth, a zone change is supposed to reflect or be consistent with the plan of conservation and development. I believe your POCD is from 2015 at this point. So, and I found a few things in there that I think are relevant. On page 79, section 10, chapter 10. Economic development is important to Stonington for several reasons: to provide for a healthy tax base, to attract new residents and businesses. 10.1, the grand list is slowed and has placed stress upon the local budget and resulted in challenging decisions about what can be funded. Growing and diversifying the tax base with more commercial property can help address this situation. So diversity in the tax base to increase the commercial tax revenue was one of the goals. To grow the grand list on an annual basis, Stonington must encourage and prioritize development. On that page is a picture of an underutilized commercial building. Actually, it looks like it's a couple of buildings combined. Old commercial type buildings that were underutilized. Now, the site that we're talking about, as I understand it, was a site of a gas station, a service station, that was was out of operation for years, was an eyesore. And having this building and this use at this place is going to be a tremendous benefit to the town. Section 10.2 of your POCD, there's 2 references to flexibility, and there are other references throughout this document to flexibility. That's something that in at least 2015, the town was looking to give this commission, I think, in order to address situations that might arise that would be somewhat unusual or different. Page 88, 10.4 of the POCD, maintain and promote the town's economic drivers. The town should develop a comprehensive economic development plan that focuses on enhancing economic drivers, including but not limited to tourism. I suspect tourists will be staying in this building. And then there are, as you go on to the charts and for section 10.2, there are more references to flexibility. Encourage flexibility and creative adaptations regarding some flood hazard requirements in historic zones, specifically for historic structures. I think that applies, though, not just to historic zones. Conduct a comprehensive rewrite of zoning regs to revisit, update, and modernize commercial zoning and streamline the planning process. Then there's review text of LI 130, which I don't believe applies here, but at any rate, the idea there was to review bulk requirements and eliminate uses considered inappropriate. Again, in section 10.2.13, flexibility, increased flexibility. What this regulation will do is increase flexibility. And it may apply not just to situations where someone builds something in excess of the allowed limits, but could apply at the outset when someone comes in to apply to construct a building like this one, to give you the authority, the ability to grant some relief, and not have the potential developer have to go to the ZBA for a variance. So this commission will have the ability, with its experience and wisdom with regard to applying the zoning regs. And I don't know your ZBA. I'm not saying it's worry about your ZBA, but I think you'd prefer to have this commission making decisions like this than the ZBA on a claim of hardship. Oh, if you do grant this, basically for the reasons I've already talked about at some length, I would ask that you put the earliest possible effective date on it, because, well, for the reasons I've stated. I should have pointed out, Mr. Terenzi is here to help me when I stumble, and Mrs. Giordopoulos is here as well. She's actually a principal in the applicant corporation. I don't know that I have anything else to add that would be helpful. I apologize if I ruffled any feathers. I certainly didn't mean to. I'll blame it on the cold I have. There are people in high political office.
Thank you, no harm done.
Blaming his things on cold. So with that, if there are any questions or concerns, I welcome.
I just want to say, you said something that hotel there was better than the gas station that was there, the service. I can tell you right now, a lot of people, residents in this town, probably view that service station, having a place to fix their cars, more important than that hotel. I'm just telling you, it's a slippery slope. When you say,
Yeah, I didn't mean
you say
derogatory
like
about it.
that.
My understanding was it was basically abandoned and had been.
They moved one place to another, and honestly, the town could have used 2 service stations, so
Could be.
I'm a resident here, it can, so it's a slippery slope, a hotel versus a place for residents to fix their cars.
I don't know
so.
your regs could
I'm just saying.
a service station, would a service station be a permitted use in this zone now?
Pre-existing non-conforming.
No, just you got a virgin lot, you got a vacant lot, no use on it, no non-conforming. It's not among the permitted uses, I would think, in this zone, particularly not in the flood zone. But I understand what you're saying, sir.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we
not just-
all have attachments to things that we don't.
It's a
It
lot
wasn't an
of
attachment, it
if-thens.
was
Yeah.
a nice place to have a car fixed versus a hotel.
If the owner was here, I'm certainly not disparaging. I'm just saying my understanding was that it had become somewhat unsightly and it's been replaced with a brand new building. That's all.
It's, okay.
Any further questions?
I would ask if you could, if there are questions, that they be asked now. If they're the kind of questions that I or Mr. Trenzia can answer, rather than waiting for deliberations to bring them up.
We're gonna, this is the public hearing.
Yeah.
This is when questions are asked.
I understand, I know.
And we're running the meeting, sir.
I know,
Okay.
I'm just asking.
We understand the order and will control the meeting and when the questions are asked.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Ryan?
Chairman, I have a question, and I think I'm going to direct it to Clifton, because you brought something up, and I want to make sure I understand the chain of events here, because I think it's rather important to what is being asked. So if I'm understanding correctly, that apparently you're claiming that the original text of this was inadvertently repealed?
That's my understanding, I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's what that's your understanding, that's why I want to understand from
I think that was
Clifton.
in Mr. Eiler's
Can
report.
I
Yeah.
ask him?
Yeah, we ran through this with the last application, and I did a review of the minutes of the phase one, where we started talking about some of these textual changes. I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment that this original regulation 6620 was brought up and said to be removed. So I said at that meeting that I believed it was done inadvertently. I couldn't find anything relevant in the minutes to the commission making a decision to remove this.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that there wasn't a separate discussion that did require that to be removed. It's just not in the minutes.
That's what, and I guess from my perspective, that's what concerns me. If we don't have a record that we actually did, in fact, choose to remove this language, then either it was mistakenly removed, we don't have a record of that.
Part of the discussion as we started the phase two, when we did the environmental subsection in the beginning, when recommendation number 4 came up, the comments from FHI were that they believe that it shouldn't have been removed in phase one and should be reinstated. There was some concern from the commission at that time because the original language was across every zone in town. And as we were talking about some of the environmental elements, it was reduced to the flood hazard overlay district. So I believe that's why recommendation 4 is phrased the way it is. It's the original language or the original bulk limits, but reduced to only the flood areas as opposed to across all of town.
It's really confused me. So, I thought I understood. So this language was in the regulations for every single zone?
Correct.
And then it was?
By special use permit.
By special use permit. What did the original language actually say?
The original language is in the report. So it's under the comments,
Oh, I don't
town
think I
planner
got that.
comments.
Oh, thanks.
So it's all that
Oh, okay.
italicized text, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
CR 6620. And so it said by special use permit, and this would have applied to any structure in town or new structure in town. They could apply for this exception to increase the height of the building just to accommodate architectural features, and then it listed a few of them. And it said, shall not exceed 75% of the total roof area and be no more than 10 feet in height. When we did the last application that was denied by the commission, the 75% number and the 10-foot were the biggest concerns that were raised during the public hearing and in the deliberation afterwards. And so, in talking with the applicant on applying for a new reg amendment, we took that information, and my suggestion to the applicant was, okay, what is the bare minimum that you would need for your specific project? Maybe come back with that. And so that's why that number reduced from 75% to 15% and from 10 feet to 6 feet. So although the commission does not have to take into consideration whatsoever the buildings that were the images or the other application, that is where the number came from. So It's just,
And on the original application for this building, since we continually talk about this building, and it has been the only example given in the discussion, was part of the special use application for the additional height requirement that, no, it
no,
was not.
because it was approved with a different elevator shaft proposed, and that had to
Okay.
be changed in order to accommodate, I believe, I'm looking at Sergio, but I believe that was in order to accommodate FEMA requirements.
And nobody came back and asked.
And so,
permission.
well, it was constructed, and then when it came back for the special use permit, the regulations had already changed.
Mhm.
And so then, therefore, it wasn't allowed, you couldn't apply for that special use permit.
But it was constructed.
Correct.
But when it was constructed, as I understand it, I could be wrong again, because I wasn't there. But my understanding is, when it was constructed, it would have been in compliance, it would have met the limits in the repealed regulation.
It would have been, but it wasn't approved.
Exactly.
And
Thank you.
so, and we talked about this with the zoning enforcement officer, because there was a delicate balance of, honestly, a month or two in which this construction happened and the application wasn't applied for and the regulations changed. So, but yes, it was constructed, it wasn't approved at the time it was constructed, and the application basically went through, that application went through an after procedure where they did apply for a variance, they did try to apply for the special use permit, and the reg amendments seemed to be the best course of action going forward. Again, that's talking about a project that's completely separate from this application, but it is worth mentioning that that's the chain of events that kind of led us to this point.
Your town attorney suggested that a text change be applied for. Because there's no other ways, we looked and looked to see whether the original special permit would be subject to, would continue to be subject to the regs that were in force at the time it was approved. Because, permits, especially since COVID now, the statutes have been changed, so these spike plans last for until 2033 or something, some of them. But no, we tried. We scoured the case law to see whether a reasonable argument could be made that this anomaly should be covered, should be governed by the regs in force and when the permits were approved in 2018, I think. And that's not the law. So they applied for a variance, and it was denied. And so here they are. This is really, I think, the last opportunity for any relief that they can have that would be reasonable. And I
just have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Because this is a text change for an entire district, not just this building. But what you said was that you wrote the text, you've written the proposed text change so that it's this building. Did you do any other research? Is there any other justification as to the parameters of the text change, 10%, 6 feet, et cetera, that would apply to other types of buildings, et cetera? What is your research? What is your?
Well, no, I don't think I'm capable of, maybe Mr. Terenzi is, of looking at other buildings to which this might apply in the district. It's more likely it will apply to new construction as it comes along. But I do think that the reductions that we put in the reg, one went from 75% to 15 or something like that. The height limit went from 10 to 6. And as Mr. Eiler, I think, said tonight, he recommended that we amend what we proposed before to do the very bare minimum that would be necessary for this building to be able to be completed. And so that's what we did.
Thank you.
But I do think, it's just as a common sense general matter, having reduced the flexibility, the degree of flexibility as substantially as we did, I think that should give comfort to the commission that this is, you're not going to end up with 30-foot elevator shafts at the top of buildings or anything like that. The most you're going to be able to have a elevator shaft extend beyond the roof line will be 6 feet. And one reason I think we gave you the pictures tonight is to show in perspective what that means. And what it means is that it's not going to be obtrusive. Several of the shots that Mr. Strangia took today, you can't even see the roof from certain angles of the building. So I don't know what else I can say. I think in terms of if this were just a virgin text change application with no context to it, I think we've still made out a reasonable argument for it based on your plan of conservation and development and your consultant's recommendations. Your consultants obviously feel the need to have some flexibility, especially in the flood hazard zone, where I think site conditions are more prone to pop up after approvals than they would be in other places in town. So, I mean, I think this is a good reg for the town. I think it's one that the town's consultant and I believe planner would recommend. And my sense is it's going to be adopted now or in months from now, whenever the the overhaul is back
That would
before
be
you.
very optimistic, a month.
I didn't say a month, did I? I think I said whenever. But yeah, I'm sure it won't be a month. I mean, I see what you've got on your next agenda,
Thank you.
for one thing. So
Thank you, sir. That conclude your presentation?
unless there's any other questions or comments?
Any other questions for the applicant, his engineer, or his attorney?
I don't have questions, I have things under discussion.
Okay.
Well, again, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to run the meeting, but the last time we were here, the hearing was closed, issues were raised that hadn't been raised during the hearing, and I couldn't get up to say anything. And that's, I'm trying to
Well, the
protect
commission-
myself
the
against
commission-
that.
Excuse me one second. If the commission makes a motion and it's seconded, and there's discussion on the motion, that isn't necessarily a question. That's discussion as part of the deliberations of the body under Robert's Rules of Order. That's not out of order.
No, I
Okay.
didn't say it was. What I'm saying.
Nor is it anything that you have an opportunity to rebut.
What I'm saying is that we have a public hearing, it's open, it hasn't been closed yet.
Correct.
Certain of the concerns that were raised the last time had to do with things like the numbers. And we could have addressed the numbers the last time if the hearing hadn't been closed. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Clifton had something he wanted to.
Yeah,
I was
I was gonna defer to Clifton if all the questions.
Well, I was just going to add on that point alone, when I distributed that note on procedural
Yes.
items, this kind of came up in that, is that no new information that the applicant can't rebut to can be presented after the public hearing is closed.
After the close, correct.
So it's just new information.
No information.
But if it's stuff that we've already discussed, then yes.
Well, there's really, it's a text amendment, so it's not new information because it's all here, right? I mean, I have some just comments about some of the language,
Correct.
and that would be under the motion to approve. No, it's not a question to you, I have some comments about the language. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
however you want me to,
So are there any further questions?
no, I don't have any questions, I have some
Okay.
comments.
If you have comments, and it's part of the discussion on a motion,
Yes.
then I think you're in order, and
Yes.
would support deferring it until that time. No further questions on the part of the commission? Okay. Clifton, you've given your comments? Okay, anyone from the audience? We have any sign-up sheet there?
Nobody signed up.
No one has signed up. We still want to offer anyone who's in the audience an opportunity to speak for or against, or just make a general comment on this application. Does anyone wish to do any of those? Hearing none, I don't imagine you require any rebuttal,
No, not silence, no.
since there was no comments.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then what's the commission's pleasure on closing the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close, seconded by Lynn. Thank you both. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. What's the commission's pleasure on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the zoning regulation text amendment as submitted by the applicant. I do not see any recommended stipulations confirming that with Clifton.
Motion to approve by Ryan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Gary. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Did you want to go first?
Lynn can go first.
Yeah, first off, I think that although the planned conservation and development was cited a number of times about new businesses, diversifying commercial property, nothing in that said anything about height restrictions, design, etc. So I don't think there's any justification for this text amendment based on the plan of conservation and development at all. I also think that the justification that was presented by the applicant was solely for one particular building that was built without a special use permit. And I personally don't think that we should allow for these kind of exceptions to the rules in the, the flood overlay district. And I think we're going to have a lot of discussion on that going forward when we talk about amendments to the regs for the next vote. So, no, I would deny this based on those.
Thank you, Lynn. Commissioner?
I have some just really nitpicky things just about the text before I get into my other things. So I'm comparing what was in there before and what we have in front of us. And the first line says, the commission, or in the cases in which they have authority to act, the planner or the CEO in their discretion. And the old one says, the commission may, by special permits, authorize certain roof structures. I like this much better. The word things like at their discretion, in cases like giving authority to the planner or the CEO, I think it should just be us. So that first line I'd like to see switched before I get into it. So there's that one. In the old one, it says structurally altered to a reasonable and necessary height. And I think necessary is important because reasonable is something, but necessary is we have to do it for whatever. In B, this is just a weird thing. And I think it's because it's this project, and I think it shows that it's just this project, it says, for any commercial structure, such as a hotel. Like, it could be any commercial structure. You don't need an example in there. And those are my specifics.
Good points.
And I would just like to, thank you, but
Well,
the word necessary.
could she finish, please?
Oh, sure, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
But, and then to go back to what Lynn was saying, I think we are in the middle of a big zoning rewrite, and one of the things I think that we're talking about, and I hope we're going to be talking about, is the whole concept of overlay zones. And I know that was something that FHI brought up a couple of times, and we said we'll talk about whether overlay zones are appropriate and whether we like them. And to do a text amendment at this point when we are in the middle of doing the commercial industrial overlay zone stuff, I'd like to see it all done together, because this is, again, a specific thing, and I don't think we're there yet. We have a lot of discussion, and doing this right in the middle of the whole zoning rewrite, I think it needs to be taken into account with the entire zoning rewrite, not doing it now, and then in a month, when we all look at all the zones, we say, oh yeah, we shouldn't have put that back in. You know, it sort of ties our hands a little bit. And agree with the same thing with the POCD. I didn't find any of that compelling, his arguments about that this was in the POCD. And I think that might be it for now.
Any further comments? Lynn, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And
I
so-
just like to, I totally agree with you, and I also think the word necessary for what?
Well,
Function?
just because it's in here and it does,
What does that mean? It means nothing, actually. It's necessary so it's designed so it's aesthetically appealing, like a cupola. It's not like somebody's going up top to look for the ships coming in. really, what does necessary
It just was
mean?
this in the original
Yeah.
one, and I thought it was a
Right.
little bit more clarifying than just, we're just gonna do this
Yeah.
to a reasonable height.
And then,
And
right, and then
so this is reasonable and
either.
necessary.
Yeah.
Just please, Wendy has the
Yeah,
floor.
okay.
It's not a conversation
Yeah.
between the two of you.
Okay.
Are you concluded? Do you have additional points?
My additional point was, this is so specific to the hotel, they clearly need 6 feet to make it. And maybe we should look at, not that I want to go back to the 10 feet, because when we had that design meeting, that workshop, everyone didn't like the taller buildings. That was across the board, everyone said no to taller buildings, everyone in that room. And to say, 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever, I think this is clearly just fixing a situation that was a mess from day one, or not a mess, but I wasn't here for any of that. But it's fixing a specific situation, and it seems like there could be another remedy. ZBA, did they go to ZBA?
They did.
They didn't, they got denied.
Correct.
They got denied ZBA. Well, then, they got denied ZBA.
Any other comments on the motion?
I have some comments, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I think, I understand the concerns we have with having, approving something that was crafted, obviously, with a particular outcome in mind for a particular building. But I think we are missing a larger point. And the point here is that this language, the original language, as I understand it, was somehow inadvertently removed from our regulations. Okay? So we can't prove that it was either voted upon or, anybody gave approval to remove that language in the rewrite process. Am I correct in that assumption? I know you couldn't prove it one way or another.
I could not find any of that.
Okay. So my concern with that is if we somehow inadvertently remove language, and then in the course of, this project or whatever, that because that language was removed, they run up against it and they're not able to proceed, my initial thought would be we put the original language back, right? And then we can proceed with the regular zoning rewrite process in order to not penalize somebody for a mistake or, somehow that occurred that we.
Inadvertent action.
Inadvertent action that we can't document, this was done because we chose it and made a vote to do it. So that would be how I would approach this. Now, whether that means we approve their amendment as written or discuss the possibility of and what I think is probably the smarter way to go, because then it takes their personal plan considerations out of the discussion altogether. We put the original language back in, and then we take it through the normal process of a rewrite. That would be how I would perceive it to work.
So, I understand what you're saying, so let me just clarify again, because I was not here for this whole process with the hotel and everything. So the original language is across the board in town.
Correct.
And it says the commission may by special use permit. So they would need to come back and get a
Correct.
special use permit.
They would need to amend their existing one that was
Correct.
approved in 20.
Right, so we could say, put this back in, because this was there, and they would have to come back and amend their special use permit, and we could deny that.
We could consider it.
We could consider, but they would have to come back with another application.
Correct.
To amend that.
Correct.
And then this goes back in, and it goes across the board to everything. I mean, I would be,
That deals with your issue,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
it's not dealing with a specific lot, it's
Correct.
dealing with an entire zone.
well, no, it's the entire town.
Also, yes.
It's
Correct.
every, but,
It
and
applies
that's,
across, and it's the original language. Again, that's kind of why it takes the specificity that is in the current proposed here, and takes that and puts it back to what it was.
Is that what
I think should
FHI
be-
is recommending in their language? That is what they're recommending.
I don't like putting it back in just one zone.
I just
so
want to
that's-
hear, is that what FHI is recommending? That the language go back in, correct?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
With some exceptions. I did have a couple, not rebuttals, but just clarifications to Commissioner Morrison's original suggestions on edits. It would now be the
Please.
time. So the first comment, and I can explain why the language for the authority for the planner or the ZEO is to act in that fashion, this would be the case when a existing structure, say a single-family home, has a chimney or similar structure that exceeds that height. Language without having the ZEO being able to sign off on it would require that individual property owner just to replace or even alter the chimney slightly to come back for a special use permit for something like a single-family home. So that's where they would have to discretion as it already is given to the ZEO to do that review for something like a single-family home. This wouldn't add any powers, it would just be considered similar to the existing set of powers that the ZEO already has. So that's why that was phrased the way it is. It also would apply to ADA components as well. That could potentially alter the height of a structure, which I can't think of on the top of my head, but ADA is given strictly to the ZEO to manage, not the commission. So those would be two examples that I would think off the top of my head of why the ZEO needs the discretion to be able to apply these for items already.
But they already have that discretion.
They do not.
They do not.
Because if you take out that language that allows them to review the height exceptions for some structures, this would mean, in the case that I provided, a single-family home would have to require a special use permit from the commission to basically update their chimney.
They're not exempt. I thought single-family homes were exempt.
They wouldn't be.
They're not.
Not if,
And they're not
if
now.
the language, correct, not if the language went in.
So.
Did you have other comments on that?
The only other comment that I had was regarding, the flood hazard overlay district. The flood hazard overlay district is an overlay district identified by the town, but it is set solely by FEMA. So we can't change that. So basically, if FEMA updates their maps, the flood hazard overlay district changes.
So it's not a zone.
It's not a specific zone, it's only the FEMA's flood zones in town that are in the FHOD, nothing else would apply. So if a property has a height requirement for FEMA, this is when that would apply. But still, language as proposed would be a special use permit.
Commissioner Morrison, did you have any other points you wanted to make?
Well, then I just go back to, we're doing it then for this totally one little tiny zone. I would be more comfortable going back to the original. I'm not comfortable with it in either way, but I would be more comfortable going back to the original than doing this. But I don't like, I don't like it, but.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
If I had a choice, I would go back to the original, to do it across town, to not make it for this one.
What's the commission's general feeling? I mean, we're discussing the motion, so what's the commission's general feeling on that option? Ryan identified really another option where we could entertain, I guess, a motion that we would bring to ourselves to put the language back in, correct? We would initiate that on our own?
The motion as it stands is to approve the application. as
Specific
Right.
language, right?
Correct, so the procedure would be for the commission to either amend that motion to
Yeah.
include some of the alterations to language Commissioner Morrison suggested, or it'd be to deny that motion, and then you'd do a note motion to put in the original language or recommendation number 4 from FHI, which you could do as part of this as well.
Okay, so we could conceivably, so if I understand.
Conceivably,
Well,
or
you've got a motion on the table.
Oh, no, I
Well,
understand.
we do.
We're just talking about before we vote on it,
You would
if
have
there
to
are other
proceed
options
forward.
that
Yeah.
are more acceptable,
you'd have to
Support.
deny the existing motion and then come back with a new motion to put in the old language,
Uh,
and then you would go back.
That would
Try
have
to
to
deal
be
with some of
a,
the
that'd be
objections that you
procedure.
raised.
I'm not a planner and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to disagree. I would think that we would have to do a text amendment application to put in, this is,
It's a good point.
I agree.
Technically, you don't have to, you could amend it as you would want to,
Mhm.
but since it is such a significant change,
yeah.
you would instruct me to put in an application to put in the original language again.
It's
And
too
then
big
we
a
would hear it in a
change.
public hearing. But procedurally, you don't have to do that.
I would feel incredibly uncomfortable changing.
So this is a text amendment application. That is what's been
This
applied
is
for.
a text amendment application. You could say, I make a motion to amend the text as proposed to X.
Yeah,
which
this
is
was
in your
advertised as a
purview.
text amendment application.
So
it's
in
not
other words,
changed.
just so I understand, we would basically be saying, we're making an amended motion to take this, what they've originally proposed, out and replace it with what had originally been in
Correct, but I do agree with Commissioner Morrison's point that that is a significant change.
Yeah, and I think we should have a separate motion on that.
Probably wouldn't recommend it,
Yeah.
but you could
And we
theoretically.
could make a text amendment motion to have this totally, our amendment is to take it totally out. It's already out,
Well, it's not in there,
And
so you're
I
just
know.
deny it.
right,
Yes.
but, see what I'm saying?
That is a good point, because it's gray as to whether it was inadvertently
Yeah.
pulled out.
I'm
or-
not sure it was
Yeah.
inadvertently pulled out.
Well, I'm not either.
I had no question.
Question
I
about
said, we
heights.
can't explain.
I have a problem with the fact that we can't prove that it
Yeah.
wasn't inadvertently
So do
rolled
I.
out.
That doesn't, just
Right.
for, again,
But-
for austerity's sake and legally speaking, just because it might have been inadvertently removed,
It is
doesn't,
voted, it's
it's
approved.
removed.
removed.
Because
Okay, we have a
How it
motion.
happened.
there's no gray area in that.
We have a motion on the table, it's been seconded. If there's no further discussion, do we want to vote on the motion? Okay. We probably ought to do this by roll call.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Morrison?
No, deny.
I'll deny.
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 The motion is denied. Chair abstains.
Now, at this point, since we've denied it, is this where we would direct you to then draft as a zoning amendment or, an emotion to bring this original language back? How do we proceed there?
With, if you wanted to go the route Commissioner Morrison brought up, and I would tend to agree with her on this, the motion would be to again deny this application, and then you would instruct staff to do their own application to bring before the commission as a town application to put in the original language and set up a different public hearing. So if you wanted to take that route, that would be the process.
Why wouldn't it be another public hearing?
It would be.
It would-
Yeah, I think you said it wouldn't be, I think you said no.
No, it would
Okay,
be.
yes,
It
yes,
would
yes.
be.
It
So
would
we
be,
need a
but
motion
it
to
wouldn't be-
deny, and there has to be a reason to deny.
We just did, didn't
We
we?
just did.
We just did that.
Well, no, the motion to approve failed.
Oh,
Right,
Motion to approve failed.
okay,
I
so
don't
now we
think
need a
that's a
motion to
denial.
deny.
right.
It's not a
Okay.
denial.
It's not a denial. So we
Yeah, yeah,
need a motion to deny. And there has to be a reason stated on the record for the denial.
Not for a text amendment.
Text amendment.
Not for
Didn't
text
you read what he prepared last time?
Okay.
So,
Then-
Mr.
then-
Chairman.
I read it.
Then I stand corrected.
I make a motion to deny the text amendment, zoning text amendment as submitted. Is that what you need from us? And in that same motion, do I also then request that the town planner and town staff prepare a motion to, a text amendment motion to reinsert the original language prior to November 2023 back into the regulations. Is that cover what we need?
Just for the record, this application would be denied.
Correct.
And I would set up a separate application to reinstate the existing language.
Correct.
Now, the existing language for the entire town?
Correct.
Or as FHI proposed, which is that flood hazard overlay district. I'd like that on the record.
I, honestly, I think we should do it for the entire town.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just,
just that's what was.
that's
there
what
to
was
start,
it. I
yeah.
think we should start with that.
But
And then we can discuss it then.
I'm not understanding this. Yeah.
Well, we could discuss it then, like, would we then take
Right.
it out?
Yeah, correct.
I think that deals with everybody's objection at this point.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
Because we have, it is gone. It is gone. We're in the middle of a major regulation changes, and I don't understand why it's gone. There is no issue. Legally, it is gone. So I'm not sure why we're bending over backwards at this point to say, well, we're taking this one thing and we're gonna change it back to what it was before, when in reality, we've moved on. We've moved on, and we've talked about height, and this is legally done.
Lynn, I think everybody agrees there's ambiguity about how it got taken out.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's
There's
done.
ambiguity.
So-
There is ambiguity.
Let me just,
And for that reason, it can be brought back and denied, okay? It can be brought back. You have an opinion, everybody here has an opinion. It can be brought back and you can vote against it.
Okay, but you
That's
said
your-
that
that's your
solves
opinion.
everybody's.
No, what I'm saying
Saying
is
that.
bringing back the regulation deals with some of the objections that have been raised here. That this doesn't apply to the whole town, it applies to just one piece of property. It deals with some of those objections. So we have a motion on the table. I didn't hear a second.
Did I hear a motion to deny?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
so I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Again, for clarity and for the record, the part of the motion that Ryan made was to deny the application as presented.
Correct.
And
Correct.
as part of that is to instruct town staff to prepare a separate text amendment application by the town to reestablish the original language from the 27th edition for public review.
Correct.
That's what I've heard.
And that is correct, and that is
Apart,
the
apart
intent.
from Commissioner Conway, but that's what I heard from three
Yes.
of you.
So we have a motion,
Can
it was
I
seconded.
would, I would make an amendment to the motion, is that how that works? I would just make it a clean motion to deny, and then we can talk
No.
about where,
No, he said it has to be tied to this,
Well,
correct?
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't have to, but for the record's sake, I would like to have a direction, because if it's just,
Correct,
if
and I
it's
think
just
that makes
We can
denied-
do that after the hearing, I'd like to not tie it to the Zion.
I think we need to, well, we have the motion, so,
You have the motion.
And I
Are
made
you
an
withdrawing
amendment.
your second?
Oh, so I'm withdrawing my second and I'm amending the motion. I hate this stuff. I'm amending the motion to be just a motion to deny.
Wait.
And now we have to vote on the amendment, right? or-
There's already a standing.
yeah, I was gonna say, I already made the,
The motion
Already
is made. Is there a second to the motion that's made?
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded.
And then do I make an amendment
this
to the
is-
motion?
Only Ryan can, because it's his.
Oh,
You have to-
only he can,
you have
okay.
to- You would have to deny his, and then you would make one. It's,
Correct.
Robert's rules is funky like that.
I know, I know.
Okay, so let's have a roll call vote on this. Commissioner Morrison?
So do I vote to?
This is to
Yeah,
deny.
Yes,
Vote no.
I vote
You
to
would-
deny the application.
Okay.
No, you would
I
vote
vote-
no if you don't want to instruct
So I
town
vote yeah,
staff.
yes.
So you would vote no.
No, I'll be okay, I'm okay with the motion, because I think we can work that out later.
okay, I'm in favor of the motion. So vote
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, the motion passes. So it's denied, and you are instructed to bring back a motion for the original
A
text to
separate
be reinstated.
application, Not tied to this.
Correct.
Correct. That's what I heard.
That is correct. Okay. Item 9C is concluded. Good evening. I didn't see anything in here about future public hearings. Any comments on those at all?
No, not at this time. The only
Okay.
thing for the commission's knowledge is that the special meeting on January 7th is going to be canceled. I will not be present, so I will not be able to prepare reports for you.
And we have no other meetings in December?
No, we have one on
Good,
next
the
Wednesday.
17th.
We have,
Well,
right,
Wednesday,
we
too.
have
Wednesday, next
we have
Wednesday.
the FHI zoning rewrite virtual meeting next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Correct.
At 7 PM. That agenda has been tentatively set out. I'm still waiting on the revised one, and I will send that out to the commission. And then we have the next regular meeting of the commission on December 17th, on Tuesday.
Which we have a lot of
And then
public hearings.
from
scheduled
after
for.
that point, we won't have a meeting until January 21st.
Okay.
We won't have the FHI meeting in January?
We will, but that'll be after January 21st.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah.
Anything on new submittals, item 11?
No.
Then I think the appropriate motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn this hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Happy holidays.
We're gonna be here next week.
Yeah.